Good to hear. Good morning.
Good morning.
We would like to joyously welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Niagara. My name is Ron Skowronski, and I will be leading the service as well as doing a little preaching at you in a few minutes. Because I'm only here once a month, and it is the month of December. To me, this is kind of my version, heavy emphasis on version of a Christmas service. And if you get another 3 or 4 of them this month, oh well. To begin our service today, I asked the question more often than not in Unitarian Universalist circles, why all this hubbub about Christmas? There is an enormous amount of Christian theology that has been ultimately rejected for many, I think, good theological and sociological reasons. And many times even my own sister says to me, says, "Why are you bothering with Christmas? You're not a Christian." To which I say, yes, but there are aspects of the tradition that are still meaningful and that are still valuable in the context of principle, which is why, as one of our living traditions, we claim that Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. So it is in that introduction and in that spirit that I ask you to please bear with me with the opening words from what is called Desiderata 2. And this was purportedly found in Old St. Paul's Church in Baltimore in the year of 1693. In whatever religion you have been taught, however you have been brought up, and however you understand your teachers, on these levels you will understand and grasp this message. It is not enough that this message be believed. It is a message to be lived. The essence of universal religion is peace and truth, with love for and kindness to all the creatures of the earth. Now is the time to express this essence in your own life. A beginning must be made, and the place to begin with and in is yourself. You would reform the world? Begin with yourself, brother. Begin with yourself, sister. The message of the unreformed reformer seldom inspires reformation. The heart of all religion is love, and righteousness, which is love in action, is the fulfillment of religion. Love not only family and friends, for love limited is love denied. Seek peace within yourself, and seek too within yourself the divine breath of life. Persist in these things. Do not let up for a single moment. Through your faith and through your deeds, you shape your life and help shape the lives of others as well. What a responsibility. The Spirit finds in you its agent and also its partner. And to the degree that you are aware of this and act on it, your life is enriched. A revelation will occur to you, a revelation higher than your most exalted dreams. The new age is coming, and in it there will be a realization of the oneness of all. Differences between the various religions will disappear. The good, which is in each of them, will be fused and will become the common goal of all humankind. Know that you have the power to choose. Choose love, not hate. Choose gentleness, not violence. Choose holiness, not evil. Dare to believe that the reign of love and peace is coming soon. Ready yourself for it. Ready yourself for it with deeds of righteousness. Righteousness is the open, pardon me. Righteousness is the door opener, and beyond the door is love. May the divine power enter every aspect of your life, endowing it with the rewards of material accomplishments, the treasures of purposeful existence, and the eternal light of spiritual achievement. To which I say, Amen. If you'll now turn into your bulletin cover, you will find our words for chalice lighting. And please affirm these words with us. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. I had a friend one time say to me, he says, what do you Unitarian Universalists sing about if you don't use a, in quotation marks, Christian hymnal? I said, well, we do everything from some of the traditional hymns that reflect our values and our principles. And I said, believe it or not, we actually one time did Everything is Coming Up Roses by Ethel Merman. I'll be Sophia Petrillo from the Golden Girls for a moment. Picture, if you will, 30 people all doing Merman. It was beautiful and frightening at the same time. But anyway, so it is in that spirit we ask you to turn in your hymnal to hymn number 235 as this holiday season begins to unfold and we sing with some joy and anticipation, Deck the Halls. Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, fa la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, fa la 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 la. Follow me in merry measure, fa la 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 la. While I tell of Yuletide treasure, fa la 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 la. Fast away the old year passes, fa la 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 la. Hail the new ye lads and lasses, fa la 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 la. Sing we joyous all together, fa la 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 la. Heedless of the wind and weather, fa la 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 la. Please be seated. Back in my hometown of Fredonia, around Fredonia, New York, we had a gust of wind that clocked in at 68 miles an hour. We were very aware of the wind and weather that day. I'm sure you had some high winds here yourselves. As we now continue our service, Let us turn for a responsive reading to number 619 in your hymnal. I may find it myself here. Pardon me. It's by W. Frederick Wooden, and it's called Magnificat. And I will begin, and if you will follow me in tandem. My soul magnifies God. We are enlarged. That God, something now within, not yet mine, has glanced at this daughter of hope. For that great mystery is a beam drawn through the lens. There is strength here like the sinew of a mother's arm. It levels the clay foot thrones of tyrants. Hunger, both body and soul, will be filled. The Holy One cleaves to those who keep faith. It will endure in those who serve mercy. Thank you. We now come to that portion of our service that we call joys and sorrows. It's an opportunity for us to focus on that which truly makes us feel, may I use the word advisedly, blessed, united, hopeful. And of course, it also helps us to share the burdens of our sorrows with those who deeply care for us, and to send them, as it is appropriate, our positive thoughts and hopes and affirmations for their highest and best good. I light this candle in recognition of this Christmas season. For more than 2,000 years ago, a small baby was born, and that baby stood up and proclaimed love, peace, and joy. And for doing so, was summarily punished by the human family for what appeared to be a gross error in his judgment. And yet we continue to strive, as we have reflected in this morning's service so far, the necessity for us to identify and unify with love, and to do anything and everything we possibly can to reach out to our brothers and sisters. So we remember all of those during this time who are hungry, homeless, victims of war and rumors of war, and we place them in the most positive light we possibly can, hoping and affirming that life will evolve and that we shall grow up to truly understand that the only answer to all of the problems of the human condition is love. Anyone else would like to share a joy or a concern, a sorrow, if you will? Now, don't everybody get up at once.
Well, I had a blubbering time again this week because I thought my cat was a goner.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and I didn't want to deal with another pet going down right at this particular time. I had a joyful time with Paul on Friday. We had lots of ham and such. And likewise, my cats had their fair share of their munchies. However, then suddenly Tippy decided, I can't eat. I'm throwing up. I'm sick. Off we went to the vet. So as it turns out, he was just constipated. So I joyfully scooped up the poop this morning.
Thank you for sharing. Reminds me of a very bad bit of humor. Not yours, mine. I made a horrible mistake and now maybe I'm not meant to say it because I'm trying to think of it here. It'll have to come back to me later. Oh boy, that was something. Anyway, if no one else wishes to share another joy or another sorrow, we'll continue to move on in our devotional service to the offering. I do believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, that during the offering we sing Spirit of Life. After for the meditation. Okay. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Because we have evolved and grown as a denomination into what I have called, it's my own term, and probably many would disagree with me, but spiritual humanists. And that basically is that we have an enormous focus on the here, the now, the inherent goodness of all of what we would call manifestation. creation by some account, words that some accounts would use. And yet we also each individually have spiritual traditions, spiritual customs, even rituals and perhaps ceremonies in our lives that help us kind of reconnect to our ancestors, whether they be people we never knew or people that we obviously knew and knew well, such as parents and grandparents. And I do believe that's one of the reasons that Unitarian Universalism, that many Unitarian Universalist individuals do bond with each other and appreciate the deeper, more profound implications of this holiday season. You know, it's funny. No matter what your theological orientation is or isn't, during this time of year, we're all seeking fundamentally the same things. We may not want to admit it. We maybe even don't identify it in ourselves, but we all want to circle the wagons. We all want to feel connected. We want to feel that we are in communion or in community with one another. And in doing so, we believe that if no matter what it is that we have to do, no matter what it is we have to do, we are gonna have a Merry Christmas, by God. And we will go out there and in a sense, you know, move heaven and earth to make sure that we're going to grab our piece of those feelings of goodwill toward all humankind. Damn it. And we go out there and we move like bumblebees, you know, in a swarm. We go at ridiculous rates of speed to go this, do this, buy that, proving only one thing, that the gospel, the good news, if you will, of loving yourself and loving your neighbor as yourself somehow has been skewed in such a way where we have become what we have been for many, many thousands of years, a herd of conspicuous consumers. A herd of conspicuous consumers. And we have been taught and we have learned well, we are creatures of habit, and we have been conditioned that without all of these things, that somehow or another, we can't be merry, we can't be happy, that it's the things that bring us joy and community and connection. And we all know, as upstanding, righteous human beings with good intellects and superior reasoning power, that nothing could be further from the truth. But just like the bumblebee that doesn't know that its body mass is way larger than its wingspan, and by all the laws of aerodynamics, it should have no ability to fly, we continue to fly anyway. And we fly into that materialism, and we engage in that conspicuous commercialism. And at the end, and we say it during the season, you know, while we can barely hold up a fork to eat our Christmas or even our New Year's dinner, because we're so exhausted from all of this rooting around and all this materialism, we think to ourselves, oh, if Christmas if we could only feel this way every day of the year, you wouldn't survive 90 days. We barely survive that period of time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and of course, New Year's, which, by the way, just so you know, I feel the same way you do. Who gave permission to the radio stations to play Christmas music? I'm listening to Bing Crosby before Halloween. And I'm like, Bing Crosby. Just, no, it can't be. But it was. So, but this is the encouragement. If you listen to the music, you will be drawn into the music, and you will be drawn into the true spirit of Christmas. And we all know that the only spirit that is true in Christmas is the spirit of loving, giving, and sharing that we share for ourselves and each other. But it keeps going on and on and on. We've had warnings, good warnings. You're familiar with the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, the Christmas Carol. I think it was done in, don't quote me on this because I'm having a problem remembering numbers really well lately, but I think it's something, it was in the 1600s. I want to say 16. Well, I want to say 16, but we do remember, that it was the Christmas Carol. And when Dickens wrote this and put it out there, it was for that same purpose, to stem the tide of the excesses, the materialism. Our Puritan brethren back in the 1600s outlawed Christmas for something like 21 years because they could not deal with its pagan roots and, of course, the excesses that went with it. And most of the time, those excesses had to do with copious amounts of brandy, and you get the idea. Of course, I've always told people, I said, if you took away all of the pagan roots of this holiday, it would be like taking a Christmas tree and removing all the bulbs. There would be no holiday. But that's another sermon. Anyway, so Scrooge, dealing with, you want to think that these are actual spirits or souls, knock yourself out. If you want to think that they're aspects of his subconscious mind, fantastic. Don't care. What you do care about is the message, the meaning. And that is, again, reaching out to each other, caring about each other, loving people who would not be, by all rational standards, considered lovable to you on any other given day. Something more contemporary, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Now, this date I do remember because I read it on the way in. Talented man that I am. 1969. It was one of the very last things that a very great man, because people don't understand his character as much as they remember his characters, Boris Karloff. It's one of the last things he did before he died. And here is this Grinch declaring, I must stop Christmas from coming, because he too was appalled for whatever reason. They don't give you a lot of backstory in these cartoons, by the way, you know that. He was appalled by the overblown materiality, and he felt that if he could steal all of that from the Who's of Whoville, that they would go boo, hoo, hoo, and Christmas would not exist. What happened? Bang. He was proven by this group of lovely people, the Who's, absolutely wrong. They got it. Hand in hand, heart to heart. They sang the same beautiful hymns, the same beautiful songs, and they would basically share amongst, let's say, 100 of them, I'm just using that as an arbitrary number, the last can of Who hash, if that's what it came to. Because Christmas was not about materiality. It was not about consumerism and all of that. It was about remembering what life is all about. It's about honoring, for example, the birth of someone who lived and ultimately died to proclaim that God is love, and those who choose to love, if I may paraphrase this, truly know that divine essence that we speak of, that divine life that permeates, regulates, and lifts us all up. And once he realized that he could not keep Christmas from coming, he then chose to participate in it, knowing that he was that he was, and the beautiful part, they loved him in spite of what he did to them. They forgave him. They were practicing, as I said in reading to you the Desiderata 2, they were practicing love. That righteousness is the fulfillment of true religion. They were practicing that love. What I also wanted to make mention of is Fred Rogers. You know Fred Rogers. Some of you predate Fred Rogers and you know Captain Kangaroo. But I knew Kangaroo. But Fred Rogers was a man who was viewed by many people and not taken particularly seriously. I've got to tell you about Fred Rogers. He was one of the most profound theological and philosophical minds, in my opinion, of the 20th century. He kept it basic, though. He kept it simple. And anytime you saw what he was trying to share with those children on that television program, and ultimately when he dealt with other groups of people, including adults, he kept it simple. And in that simplicity, he asked just what the Desiderata 2 asks, that we just strive to love. Just strive to love. It's what makes this denomination so dynamically different and unique amongst, I'll use the term, and I know some of my contemporaries might argue with me, makes it so uniquely different because it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you believe or don't believe. You are welcome. Why? Because you exist. That is the sum and substance of true religion. And ironically, this faith tradition is one of the very few that not only talks that talk, but makes again, going back to the Desiderata 2, makes a consistent and determined effort to walk that walk. To make a world, as I often quote, a world that must of its necessity forget the afterlife, forget all of that theological stuff. We have to create, quote, my words, heaven on earth. We have to make a world that ultimately, if we are to fulfill a true Christmas spirit, a world that works for everybody. Not most people, not just some people, everybody, no exceptions. No exceptions. How do we do something like that? Well, we've got to, as I mentioned, Mr. Rogers kept it simple. It looked like the Grinch got that simple message. He went to a lot of trouble. He could have just gone down to Whoville and asked, but he didn't because he thought he'd be rejected or hated. And he never had all he had to do was say, what's the real meaning of Christmas? And they would have taught him that without all that trouble. But the one person I want to talk about is one of our favorites, our Transcendentalist brother, Henry David Thoreau. Thoreau is noted as saying something that is very profound. And whether you hear this at the time of the holidays, which is when I think it is most significant, it's also significant on a day-to-day basis. And he said very straightforwardly, simplify. Pardon me. Simplify. Now, what did he mean? He understood that even back in those days, people were getting busier and busier and busier. Have we ever heard of the term busy work? It means accomplishing a whole lot of what? Nothing. A whole lot of nothing. The Hindus call, by the way, the mental aspect of this, monkey mind. So here we are, the height of creation, or the height of evolution, and we are running around like a bunch of crazed apes trying to accomplish nothing. So Thoreau says, no, no, no. I'd rather see you do a few things. Of course, please forgive me. I tend to paraphrase. I'd rather see you do a few things well or 100 things well rather than trying to cope with 1,000 things. And it is in that concept of simplification. And if you study, for example, how people recover from addictive disease, alcoholism, other forms of addictive behavior like drugs, etc., gambling, take your pick. There is a dynamic theme that works in those programs, which, by the way, are incredibly successful, is because the programs are simple and they encourage simplicity. Don't get caught up in so much stuff. Not just the materiality, not just the consumerism, but we all get caught up in so much stuff. I can't walk into a room, into a restaurant. I was doing some hospital work this past week. I swear, as life is my foundational witness, if you will, that I didn't see a person who wasn't glued to this. It's become, if I may use an old school term, the devil's plaything. You can't see children, 3 and 4 years old, glued to this thing. Adults, you can't have a conversation. Oh, excuse me. What did you just do? Oh, it was a Sudoku. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll give you a Sudoku. But anyway, the thing is that the encouragement for simplicity is never more important than it is today. And let me tell you exactly why. They've done some studies at a couple of the major universities. Have you ever heard somebody say to you, maybe they've finished an examination or they've read a very thick or very profound book, and they say, my head hurts. It's too full. It's too full. They're beginning to prove that we are overstimulating our craniums. Too much information, too much data. And though this is the best computer that's ever existed and probably ever will exist, there is such a thing as burning it out, not permanently, but going through periods and cycles of time when we are just overloaded with information. And then what happens? We get frustrated, we get agitated, we get angry, and then we get depressed, and the rest, as they say, you probably can extrapolate where I'm headed from here. So the point that he made way back then, not just about, again, the holidays, but now, is to start to simplify. Do we need 18 coats? Do we need 23 pairs of shoes and all the time, trouble, and expense of accumulation? The answer is no. There are big movements in the Unitarian Universalist movement to do just that, to begin to help us, to encourage us to move us forward into simplification. One of them is the consumption of meat. Now, I'm a card-carrying carnivore. I'm the guy that's got a bottle of A1 sauce and a fork, and when the cow passes, turn your heads. However, I am very cognizant of the impact it's having on Mother Earth. And so how am I striving to simplify my life? Am I going to cut out the eating of meat for my way of doing things? The answer is no. But I am going to become more moderate. I'm going to be a little bit of a Buddhist. I'm going to follow a middle path. My rationale is very straightforward. I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. We've just hit 8 billion people, folks. Smile. We really shouldn't have more than 4, to be honest. We are at peak oil. We are running out of everything. You don't need to hear that from me. You know that, but the point is, we are responsible to, if we can simplify our lives, we then can make the life of someone else better. And that's part of not only loving ourselves, but loving each other and creating that world that works for everybody. So I encourage you to take heed of the Grinch, of Mr. Rogers, and of course, our good friend, Mr. Scrooge, and most importantly, Mr. Thoreau, because it is in that transcendentalism, it is in that simplification, we can transcend those things that are holding us back. We can transcend those things that are causing us the agitation and the consternation, and we can be together as the Who's were in Whoville, hand in hand, heart to heart, striving to create a world that works for everybody. And wouldn't it be wonderful if at the end of that wonderful process, we could all turn to each other and say, at one point significantly, boy, that would be the merriest Christmas since the first one. Thank you. I bid you peace. Oh. You know, sometimes you're so used to having a worship associate, you think, oh, I'm done preaching, I can sit down. I can't sit down. That's all right.
I thought just 1, 3, and 5.
You can do whatever you want because you are the mistress of music. I am but your humble servant. So let's do 240 in your hymnal, and let us, if you are able and or choose to, let us arise and sing as we begin the process of concluding our service. I heard the bells on Christmas Day.
I heard the bells
On Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat. Peace on earth, goodwill to all. Goodwill to all. And in despair I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to all.
That wasn't quite 1,
You know what?
3, and 5.
You know what?
Want to do 5?
You know what?
What?
I'm glad you asked. I don't want to leave it like that. I want to do number 4.
Okay. It's just,
Please.
I can't see, my eyes don't go like this. So
Play
I
it
can't
again,
see
Sam.
the
If you can
words.
play it for them, you can play it for me. Then peal the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth God sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth to all goodwill. Much better. Thank you. Please be seated. I do not, sir. Please share it with us.
Longfellow was under the considerable stress because his son had been the Civil War had broken out, and his son was wanting to go to the fight for the North, and he didn't want him to go, and they had a lot of dispute between them about that. And the boy I can't remember his name, went ahead without his father's blessing and enlisted in the military. And they had some pretty sharp feelings over it. He went to the war, and after a few months, I forget the name of the battle, but he was very severely injured. And they actually reported to his father that he was dead. Longfellow was very upset about it. He'd separated badly with his son. And ultimately, it turned out that his son had not been fatally injured. He had some fairly difficult paralysis, I think, but it even went away, and he survived the battles. And this is the song, and our text just has it all wrong. They've left out the important verses. It's really too bad, because they've damaged an incredibly powerful story. And that story was then when Longfellow, the day after, I think he heard that his son was alive, he heard the bells toll. That's what he's writing about. But they get it kind of screwed up in our version.
No. I tell you, you've inspired me, because I really want to look that up on Google, because I'm always interested in, as Paul Harvey used to say, the rest of the story, because some of those rest of the stories are mind-boggling and heart-moving. So thank you, Peter. Thank you. Before we close our service and extinguish the chalice, we have our announcements. Are there any announcements that I am obviously not going to be aware of that you want to share? Anybody?
I think I heard last week saying that next week.
No, next week is the 11th. Yeah, or in other words, Christmas Day. There is going to be a Sunday service here, 11 o'clock, Christmas Day. There will also be a service on January the 1st, which is New Year's Day. Now you say to yourselves, how does he know about January the 1st? I will be your minister that day. So, and which segues me into something that I want to share with you. Because I am spiritually fluid, I have a deep appreciation, as you probably have gained by listening to some of my work, for limited amounts, but nonetheless of some of ritual and ceremony, which is very, very aligned with Unitarian Universalist principles. It's not an accident that we light candles before the service. It is not a coincidence that we light the chalice, because that, of course, is the symbolism, the absolute insignia, if you will, of what our values and principles represent. And I thought to myself, you know, New Year's Day is a very significant time. People get up and they make all kinds of New Year's resolutions, or as I like to call them, if they actually come true, New Year's revolutions. Most of them stay in the genre of resolutions. And one of the main reasons, and we brought you this fact in the body of our work, is that we have a tendency in our monkey minds, and we have a tendency of overfilling our brains. And so when we contemplate those things in our lives that we don't want anymore, whether it's a couple extra pounds, or whether it's wanting to be nicer to the family dog, or take your pick, more often than not, those are like little afterthoughts. And to be honest with you, your subconscious mind is going, you're not going to do that. And you don't. You just don't. So here's something I'm going to suggest. You don't want to do this, you don't have to. But this is a tradition that I've engaged in for probably the last 30 years. Again, I'll be Sophia Petrillo and say, picture this if you will. Each of you today, if you wish, will take one or two of these cards, 3x5. They're what I call recipe cards. And you will go home. And between now and January the 1st, I want you to go into whatever you consider is your period of prayer, reflection, meditation. I don't care what you call it. The point is, I want you to go deep within and ask yourself, what no longer serves me well? What is holding me back? What would I like to be rid of? It's been said that you cannot hold a positive and a negative simultaneously. And that's true. And most of us try to do just that. We have something we want to get rid of, and we have something we want to replace it with, a positive, but because we hang on so tightly to the known or that which has been hindering us, we end up neutral. We end up not doing anything. So in that time of meditation, in that time of reflection, jot down, and it doesn't have to be the Magna Carta, but jot down on your little list here, those things. And really give some time between now and the first of the year to reflect just how important it is for you to release those things mentally, let's call it psychologically, and even subconsciously. And affirming or making firm in your own resolve that you will replace that which no longer serves you with something that you really desire to experience and to express. Now, on the day of the service, probably just after joys and concerns, what we're going to do is take a few minutes, and it will not take very long, but each and every one of you are going to hold that symbolic image of those things that no longer serve you, and you're going to simply release them in a symbolic. This is not magic. This is not witchcraft. This is not hocus pocus, but you're going to psychologically and symbolically release all of that in those few moments. It's what we used to call a burning bowl ceremony. I have called it a fire communion because the flame is always symbolic of burning up that which is no longer necessary and releasing it to what I will call its native nothingness and making room for those things, again, I say, that are positive. Now, I'm going to leave these up here, and please help yourself to as many as you think you need. And again, it doesn't have to be a lot of them. I had one lady years ago bring up something that looked like a roll of toilet paper. And it scared me because I thought I'd have to have 2 fire extinguishers and the EMT team. But we're going to, as they say, to quote Mr. Thoreau, we're going to simplify. So that's what's going to be happening on the 1st of January. And I hope you choose to participate. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised from an emotional point of view that it is cathartic to help you release. And from a psychological point of view, it will help you prepare, hopefully, for the year to come, which, as we all hope and affirm, is bigger and brighter than the year previous. And that's all I have to say about that. Anyone else? Okay. By the way, if you know of anybody who, what I'm going to actually, I have to count on you to not just this group to do this, but that you take cards and make sure that next week and even Christmas Day, that people, if they choose to, take a card or two so that they'll be ready. Because the last thing we want to do is 2 minutes before the service, again, scribbling down something on a piece of paper. That doesn't respect the process. And this is, if you do it right, that's when the process becomes very positive and very uplifting. Everybody understand? Excellent. Thank you. Oops. Okay. Let us pray. We have gathered together, brothers and sisters, united in life. And it is in that one life, that one power, that one infinite loving presence that we live, move, and have our very being. Do we understand it? No. We strive to identify it and unify with it so that we may continue to grow and evolve. And we commit ourselves as we go through this holiday season to look in awe and wonder at every opportunity that encourages us to love and love deeply and recklessly, that encourages us to be better versions of ourselves than we were just the day before. As we go our separate ways, we covenant with life itself and with one another to keep things simple, to keep things honest, to keep things compassionate. And in so doing, we find ourselves anticipating and joyously expecting a greater experience than we have ever experienced before. This is our chosen pathway. And in love and light we have prayed. Amen. As we take our cover and we open it to chalice extinguishing, please affirm with me. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And I quote, stink, stank, stunk.
No, it's my favorite line in that. Cuddly as a cactus, you're as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch. You're a bad banana with a greasy.
We also choose to stay with us for refreshments in the social hall after the service, please. I believe there is caffeine abounding.
Yes.